Welcome to Hard Hats and Horizons, the podcast where we dig deep into the construction and economic developments shaping the future of Dallas-Fort Worth. We bring you insights from industry leaders and visionaries who are driving growth in North Texas. From construction projects to industry trends and insights, we cover it all. So grab your hard hat and join us as we explore the people and projects shaping the skyline of DFW. Now, here is your host, Andrea Pender.
Cassie, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. It's our very first episode of the Hard Hats and Horizons podcast. And Cassie is the vice president for JP Morgan Chase, and she is a commercial banker in the middle markets. So we met a couple years ago at Crew Fort Worth, which I know we are going to get into here in a little bit. So we're just going to kind of get started on your background. So talk to us about how you got started and how you landed into banking.
I'm so honored to be here. This is so fun. And I think that you and I both have a passion for, women empowerment, empowering women. And just because it's in this industry, it's just, a coincidence, but I'm really honored to be here.
I'm glad you came. When I was reading your form, there were so many things that I'm like, yep, that's me. That's me. So, yeah.
No, truly, I feel like banking was, kind of predestined for me, whether you believe that or not. But I actually started banking 20 years ago.
Okay.
I actually had to talk about this because I just started at JP Morgan Chase 2 weeks ago. So this is kind of new. So I've been kind of telling my story.
That's
every
exciting.
once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I started working when I was 16. I actually was a grocery stacker for our local grocery store in Clyde, Texas. And
Where is Clyde?
Abilene. So
Okay.
West Texas is where I grew up.
Okay.
And I just did it so I could have gas money. And my parents were like, you just need to work. And I was like, absolutely. And ended up by the end of my senior year in high school, I was doing the books for said grocery store and doing customer service and things like that. Yeah. So just kind of jumped into it. And when I graduated from Texas Tech is where I got my undergraduate degree. And when I worked at Tech, I worked at the same grocery store, but in Lubbock, and there was an American State Bank. And that guy said, hey, would you ever want to work at a bank? And I was like, that may be good because I would work from like 7 to midnight.
Oh, wow.
And close the books down for that grocery store. So yeah, probably part-time hours where I could actually sleep, right? And get some sleep, get some rest.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started working part-time there as I got my degree. And when I graduated from Tech, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I got an English degree, literature art. So I know you and I, really relate to that and just stories and storytelling. And my minor was 18th century British literature, which again, that's when women started coming out of their ghostwriting, right? They really started saying hey, I'm a woman writer. I'm not writing under the surname of this male. So I really thought that was fascinating.
That is interesting. It's interesting too how we all go to college when we're 17 or 18 years old and we're expected to know what we want to do for the rest of our lives. You've never had a job, you've just been in school for 100 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just such a weird thing to think about too. You really should just be in the moment. And I talked about that yesterday with a colleague. Kids should really just be taught to be in the moment. You don't have to know what's going on 50, 20 years from now. Just understand who you are as a person here, and all of that will come to you. I wish I would have known that back then. I honestly think I would be in the same boat.
I do too. I'm like, what would I go to college for? And I'm like, no, I kind of just really love that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And worked for a small bank as a personal banker, ended up being their teller supervisor, and went straight into managing branches.
Oh, wow.
At 24 years old.
Okay. And because you started at 16, so you had a bunch of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so somebody just picked up on those managerial skills, those leadership skills, and kind of threw me in without any leadership training. And ended up managing one of the biggest branches that they had, and it was in downtown Dallas. It's Comerica Bank. So I managed their downtown branch for almost 6 years.
Okay.
And what I really focused on was teaching leadership, not just banking. And I ended up, for whatever reason, bringing on the new commercial analysts for their lending program and teaching them banking because they just came on straight out of college. They knew accounting, they knew finance, but they didn't know banking,
Okay.
treasury,
Mm.
merchant, card processing,
Uh-huh.
deposits, credit, just the foundational things. And talking to them, I was like, I want to be a commercial banker.
Mhm.
I work with the small businesses because that was my main focus as a manager there. So I was like, this is really cool. I want to help the community. I want to help the businesses that support this community. And they were just kind of like, no, you don't have a business degree. We really want you in this position. I was like, I get it, but I think I've outgrown this. Here's what I want my career to be. And they just kind of kept saying no. And it's like, okay, well, I'll go find somewhere that will support that. So I worked for BB&T, now Truist, as their market leader in Coppell.
Okay.
Managing that market. So I had a branch where I managed a balance sheet, tellers, personal bankers, and I was the small business leader basically.
Okay.
And did a lot of the small business loans, worked with wealth management, and kind of the same thing. Like brought them in and said, hey, I want a career in commercial banking. This is what I want to do. And they were like, no, you need a business degree. I was like, you know what? Fine. I'll go get a business degree. So I got accepted into TCU's executive MBA program in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And wrote him a letter, like had everything done. Like, here's the time I can take, my PTO plus my sick time. I won't take away from what the bank has already given me. And they said no.
Oh, wow.
It was really strange because my boss at the time and my regional manager at the time, were both male, both had families. And when he emailed me back, he said, we fear it will affect your work-life balance.
Interesting.
And I wrote back and I just remember it's just clear as day. And I said, I can either report you to HR or you let me go.
Uh-huh.
I'll go find somewhere where somebody will accept me and help me in this journey. So I had to defer a year for getting my MBA. Worked at Guarantee Bank in downtown Fort Worth for a short while, being their commercial real estate banker. The culture just didn't fit. I think we can all kind of agree sometimes where it's just not a good fit.
Right.
We can just move on. And Bank of America had actually been recruiting me for a while.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, actually, I'm getting my MBA. I'm starting 6 months. And they're like, why wouldn't we hire somebody that we know will get a ROI immediately?
That's
That
exciting.
can bring that expertise and that leadership directly to this job, into this role in building Fort Worth. And that was 8 years ago.
Nice.
So
Nice.
that's my Bank of America career. So commercial real estate, commercial banking. They brought me on because of my commercial real estate background. Even a year, it was still more than that team had seen. So I was really able to hone in on those skills. And in all of that, I met Norma Crow, who is the founder of Crew Fort Worth.
Okay, nice.
And she introduced me to everybody she knew. I did real estate counsel. I did all of the things, and it really built a foundational network for me. And I feel like that attests to my success in the Fort Worth market, because you have to understand Fort Worth is a city all on its own, right? Its growth is very specific to the market there, right? And nobody cares like what interest rate you'll give them. They want you to know that you're their partner. You understand their vision, you understand their execution, and you can walk alongside them. And so I feel like I'm honored to work in this market, in this environment. And being a commercial banker, I am able to support them in those goals, in those visions, to help them grow their company at whatever size they want to, or sell it, or raise capital, things like that. So all of that is something that I do every single day, and it is so much fun.
And it all goes back to relationships.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I always say we do business with people you know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're trusting bankers with $1 bazillion, you know, so you need to trust them. You need to have that relationship with people. It's interesting because I have a friend of mine that just moved to Chicago, and she said everything, it's just a transaction.
Yeah.
And she comes from here where everything is a relationship. And, you know, you eventually will get those transactions,
Yes.
but it's ultimately because you have a relationship. And so it's very different. And I just can't imagine that where it's, you just have to win the job, or it's just X amount of money, you know, like, I want to know you, I want to like you, you know, so.
Yeah, because we talked about, your learning abilities, these personality tests that we take. You need to understand how that person may take good news, may take bad news, may take interesting news. So you have to give them some information that they may not want to hear, but because you know them
Mm-hmm.
and have some background, you can talk it out and be among somebody you know, and to be able to make a decision at a flat ground, right? Where it's like, I don't know you. Why are you giving me this
Right.
information?
Right.
And you
Mm-hmm.
build sort of a trust. And it doesn't have to be a personal relationship. You trust them as a business person and they'll
Right.
make the right choice and vice versa.
Right.
So you're absolutely right on that in that instant.
That's interesting because I didn't know all of your background and how you landed where you're at now. So that's exciting.
Do you need reliable, high-quality service for your commercial project? Choose Carrco, the most trusted contractor in commercial painting, drywall, and floor coatings in DFW. With over 30 years of experience, Carrco delivers top-tier craftsmanship across Texas. From expert painting and seamless drywall and durable floor coatings, we handle it all, on time and on budget. Transform your space with the professionals at Carrco. Visit carcopainting.com today. Carrco, where quality meets reliability.
What are some key moments or challenges that you've had in your career or in your life?
I think, and background, I've been married for 13 years. My husband is actually in commercial real estate too.
Uh-huh.
He's a flooring contractor in the commercial space. We have 4 beautiful, wonderful children.
That you all are just beautiful. Like every time I see the family pictures, I'm just like, man, they're all just they're perfect. This is just a perfect little family.
It's so fun. And I think when people ask, like, how do you do it? Just to be really truthful and say you don't.
Yes.
You just have a wonderful partner that, like you said, you have your good, bad, and ugly
Uh-huh.
with, and you just learn how to co-parent and do it to where your kids don't see, a lot of the bad, but they understand like days are hard and sometimes we do need a break because we're both full time.
Mm-hmm.
But they're wonderful kids. And I think a big moment in my leadership and my learning came from having my first child, Cooper, who's
Mm-hmm.
12 now.
Uh-huh.
And he was diagnosed with autism at 3 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So brand new in my career. I had just been promoted to manager
Uh-huh.
at Comerica Bank, and I get this diagnosis. And I always knew
Mm-hmm.
it's not that it was off. You just have this just feeling. And I was like, he's learning differently. He speaks differently. He's very inquisitive for a 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
You would see him interact with other kids. It's just like, I'm not, I'm seasoned mom by any means, but to me there were just some things, and therapists would tell us he's fine. He's, there's nothing wrong. I'm just saying there's something, it's not wrong. Normal is subjective,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And people just want kids to be normal, whatever their definition of normal is.
Right. Right.
And so when he was diagnosed, it took a lot for me to look inside and say, okay, our lifestyle is going to change. Like
Mm-hmm.
my version of motherhood is not going to look like everyone else's. It's going to be where I'm looking at my child and say, okay, how do I teach him to learn in this way? Where I'm not saying, do it like this because everyone else does it.
Right.
And I really think when that clicked in my head, you look at other people that you manage or that you work with, and you're like, they don't have to
Mm-hmm.
think the same way you do,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to learn how they work so you can be successful too, and so they can be successful. And I really feel like I learned that, and I keep learning that because I have Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
And he's 12, he's wonderful. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't think he's autistic. I'm like, that is very kind of you. He is, but because we learned early on and we were able to use the tools and resources that we had available and support him, he will live whatever the normal life is
Good.
for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's highly intelligent. I always joke he's like Sheldon Cooper on Big Bang Theory.
Uh-huh.
That's my Cooper. Like I'm measuring like windows the other day and I'm standing on a ladder. So I'm like, oh, I was like, what's 36 times 5? Like trying to just yell at whoever. And
Uh-huh.
Cooper just like
Knows the answer.
And he like walked and he's like, how come you don't know what that is?
Oh.
So for him, he's like, how do you not know how to count by 36s?
Well, we
He
didn't
spouts
have
a
to
lot.
laugh.
I'm like, you know what? I don't, but I really appreciate
Yeah.
you doing that.
Well, and good for you for recognizing that because so many like I do a monthly BD training for the team and a lot of it's like emotional intelligence. So like reading the room. And so many people just overlook all of those things. And so they, for their kids or their coworkers, but that's really interesting that you noticed it with Cooper and then you were able to take that skill set into all of your colleagues that you work with. Like that's huge.
Service level's not everything that you see,
Mhm.
right? And I think it's hard to have empathy a lot of times in this industry. It is very male dominated. It is very black and white.
Mhm.
So to come in and have that different point of view is sometimes very hard,
Mhm.
right? They
Mhm.
just want a yes or no answer, and you're like, well, it's really not the case.
Right.
There's going to be a backstory to it. We can get there another way. You just have to be willing to listen and take that in
Right.
instead of just saying it's this or this.
Mhm.
So being able to have those conversations in any environment has been very, very good for my career. And I feel like it has a partial, I guess, support in my leadership because I do have that skill and learned it very on.
Nice.
It makes me a better parent. It makes me a better
Mhm.
colleague, employee,
Person.
manager. Yeah,
Just
person.
person on the earth.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing I spoke about is getting my MBA, right? I didn't think that was in the cards for me. You know, it was funny because when I went and applied for TCU, they're like, we have your original like undergraduate
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
application. Yeah, at
Ah.
TCU.
Uh-huh.
And just kind of like that world and where I was at that time. And when I got accepted, it was almost just like, they talk about imposter syndrome. It's like, wow, like I took a breath and then I was like, how am I going to do this? I have 2 kids. I have a husband, I work full time, and it was almost like, should I do it? Do I need to do this? And I did, and it was hard, and it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of things that I hadn't learned before, but that ROI
Mhm.
is what they promised. I was able to apply it to my job and my role and what I did.
Nice.
They say ROI on Monday, and it truly was an ROI
Nice.
Monday. And I'm like you, I love to learn. I'm always researching, always learning. I want all of the knowledge.
I do
want it
too.
all.
That's my that's also like my downfall because I'll
Yeah.
sign up for classes and then I'm like, Andrea, you do not have time for another, but I want to take it right now. And I'm like, okay, in 6 months you can sign up for whatever this course is. You don't need another one right now.
And I think to take it to another level, to be a commercial banker, now middle market banker, where it's a different revenue size, right? Where
Okay.
you're now dealing with maybe an executive board or a more, seasoned executive team. I can go in there and use that knowledge that I had that I wouldn't have had before that would may have been self-taught or, work taught. But now I can go in with those tools and resources, have more confidence. But that's a tool for my clients as well. That's a tool for my employer.
Nice.
It's for me to have those and bring them out.
Yeah. This was not on our question sheet, but since you and your husband are both in commercial real estate and you have 4 kids, would you, and you loved college and you went on to get your MBA, if today they were going to college or at the age to go to college, would you encourage college? Would you encourage trade, trade school? What would you do?
That's a great question. We talk about it times. For Cooper,
Mhm.
I tell him go to trade school, go learn trade. I know college is probably not in the cards for him, classroom, right? So I was like, go learn a trade.
Mhm.
I just met a mechanic at Sewell Cadillac in Grapevine. She is 22 years old. She is making 6 figures because she is licensed to work on every Cadillac from 1965 to present.
Wow.
And she's been in school since she was 18. So it took her 4 years to get those certifications.
Yeah. And now
But
she's
she
set.
works at Sewell
Uh-huh.
and has those certifications
Mhm.
and went to trade school for it.
Yeah.
And like, why wouldn't you do that? There's so many trades now that, we see that the generation may lose.
I
We talked
know.
about that, like with labor and construction
Mm-hmm.
alone, right?
Yeah.
It could be plumbing, it could be electrician. Go to trade school, dude.
Uh-huh.
But my girls really have kind of the different personalities. Like my daughter wants to go to TCU.
Okay.
And
Just like mom.
I know, thanks, that's fine. And I kind of joke, I was like, you better hone in on your basketball skills because I don't know if we can afford TCU. I joke I could just get a part-time job there as a professor, like while she's
There you go.
going to school for
Free tuition.
Yeah. But I just thought, get a business degree,
Mm-hmm.
general studies or a business degree, because whatever you want to do in life, that's what you'll need foundationally.
Mhm.
You can go do whatever you
Anything.
whether you want to do art school, whether you want to do something else,
Mm-hmm.
get a business degree.
That's smart. I never thought about it like that. That's
what you
really
have to
smart.
do.
Mm-hmm.
My husband has a business degree from Texas Wesleyan, and
Uh-huh.
he went from baseball coach to project manager, and now he owns his own business. But because he had that foundation, he was able to do all of those things.
That's interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Mhm.
And I think I wish my parents would have told me that. Just get a business degree.
Mhm, mhm.
That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
everything else will fall into place.
Well, I think 20 years later, like we kind of, like when I went to college, um, I guess my parents both went to college, but
Yeah.
they kind of just did the traditional, like work for the family company type of thing. And so now we know, get that business degree because you can go use it for anything, So I think 20 years ago, maybe there wasn't enough knowledge there to like what do we tell our kid to do when they're trying to choose what they're majoring in college.
Because parents just wanted us to get a degree. They're like,
Mhm.
we don't care.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
want you to get a degree. So
Exactly.
neither one of my parents went to college. So
Uh-huh.
for me, it was
Just go.
just go.
Mm-hmm.
You got accepted.
Do it.
Do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about mentorship? How has mentorship helped you over the years?
I think that, again, if you don't have a mentor, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice. You can't learn critical things in your career without a mentor. So, like I said, I had Norma,
Mm-hmm.
who just kind of took me under her wing and taught me how to network, taught me how to ask inquisitive questions without being like, hey, I want your business. So
Right.
understanding maybe what that person in front of you needs
Mhm.
or what y'all can work on or help
Mhm.
networking and just build that web,
Mhm.
right? So in the beginning, she was like, you just need to be a connector. You
Mm.
can't worry about the business that you need because I don't think you really know what that is yet.
Ah,
Right? You're new in your career, you're new in this role. So just start meeting a lot of people and figure out like maybe what they need from you. And then you can start asking for business, asking for referrals once you know your market and your
right.
environment, right? I
Mhm.
think that was such great advice. And I ended up being a connector. They knew, like, if they went and asked me if I knew this person, I could be able to connect them or had, like, what do they call it?
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
six, what is it? The Kevin Bacon thing? The
Yes.
6 steps of, what is that called?
So what is that? We might have to edit this.
We're gonna have to, yeah. What is that called?
Degrees of separation.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I would know that. It took me a few years, but I really felt powerful in having that information and having that advice. And I truly give that advice to this day for, I mean, anybody but women starting out in this industry. It's, you don't have to be this person who commands a room.
Mhm.
Be the person that people need to go to
Mhm.
and that know have empathy, that you're friendly, that they'll talk through anything with you. And I feel like that advice has carried me on through even this role that I just got promoted to.
Mhm.
I can look back and say that was great advice. Another really good one was my former boss. His name was Will McDaniel. And it was kind of like don't burn a bridge, but be kind to everyone that you encounter because you never know
Mhm. Mhm.
when you will see them in a room and when you need them. And you think about that, you think about the golden rule, right? And it really is, it's not the golden rule. And this, I learned this actually at a convention a couple of years ago. And it's called the platinum rule.
Ah,
It's treat others how you would want them to treat you.
okay.
And that's kind of
Yeah.
what he said. Treat others how you would want them to treat you
Mhm.
in any given situation.
Mhm.
And he was one of those bosses where you went out of maybe it was a crucial conversation or maybe developmental conversation, and you left it going, did I get in trouble? Like, was I being
Uh-huh.
managed? You would never know because he would put it in such a way. It's like, I know where you're at.
Mhm.
I know why you made this decision, but let's talk about maybe the other end of it and how we could have done this better. You're doing great.
Mhm.
You're doing really well. Here's one stepping stone that you may want to consider and maybe how we can look at it a different way. And I never would leave those conversations feeling like I was in trouble or there was something
Right.
wrong, right? Because I can be a very anxious person anyway.
Uh-huh.
And, I say being a female, but always going in thinking the worst,
Mhm.
right? And he was just like, in any encounter that you have with anyone, know that they're at a different level than you or wherever they're at in their world, in their environment, they're going to meet you there,
Mhm.
meet them there too. And and that came out of a conversation I had with an underwriter. And I
Uh-huh.
can say this. I needed him to make a decision. It was a yes or no. He was new and being a loan officer and underwriter, and he had his own, you know, limit that he could approve. And I finally just cut off his conversation. I was like, I just need a yes or no. Like
Uh-huh.
I was tired of like all of the fluff.
Mhm.
It's like, dude, I just need a yes or no
Uh-huh.
because I know it's a no because you keep talking around it, and I
Right.
just need to escalate it.
Right.
And my boss called me back and he's like, he was new and he didn't know how to have that conversation with you yet. So instead of learning who he was and maybe how he makes decisions, you weren't able, because you cut him off. Like you weren't able to have that conversation with him, where that could have been a good leading opportunity for you to say, hey, next time you encounter a senior commercial lender, let's talk through these steps.
Right.
Like, I know your answer's no now, but here's maybe what you lead with. And I was
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great
Well, and
advice.
then after that, you were able to implement that with who knows how many, situations and people and all that kind of thing. So,
I mean, in all of my personality tests, that's
uh-huh,
kind of what I do. It's
uh-huh,
like a grace period
uh-huh.
and then like burn somebody to the ground. And I hate that about myself. I really do. But to your point, now that I know about it, I can objectify my brain.
Right.
Like, don't go red.
Right.
Just kind of talk through it with yourself and then have that conversation with the
Yeah.
person.
Well,
Yeah,
and this is such a small industry.
it is.
I mean, you can't burn bridges in this
No.
industry. Otherwise, you're gonna leave the industry because
Yes.
nobody wants to work with you anymore. So,
And I did apologize because like my boss said, like he's going to do more of your deals.
uh-huh.
He could just do no just because you said that. That's not fair. That's not right. But he's going to crucify your deals more than probably he would
Right.
another,
Right.
rather than talk it through. You may just do that no because that's what you want. And that's where it ends.
Right. Right.
Because banking is not black and white. It is where
Right.
you have to tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you may have just given yourself more work. It's same in the construction industry, same in commercial real estate. It's that initial relationship that if you don't make that personation that you want, you're not going to win that relationship. Yeah.
Right. It's always interesting to hear different stories on mentorship because some people you talk to, they've had a mentor for 50 years, and so I think mentorship is huge. And I always say I wouldn't be at the spot that I'm at in my career if I didn't have a mentor.
Yeah.
So,
And I remember listening to, I think it was Laura Miller. She's president of Veritex Bank. And it was, how do you ask for a mentor? And that's a really good question too, because mine just kind of fell into my lap. How do we look for mentors? How do you reach out to someone and say, hey, will you mentor me? I still don't really know the answer to that question. It's like, kind of, who do you hone in on and who do you relate with? And just maybe ask them for coffee and just say, hey, I really need some help. Like, I would love to keep meeting with you and keep learning from you. I think that's really difficult too, to just reach out to someone and have a conversation with them.
it is, but I've also found that they're more than happy to do it. They're happy to put an hour aside once a month or to pick up that phone if you text, hey, I have a quick question. I don't know what to do. And then you get a phone call 5 minutes later. So, I mentor a couple girls right now, and then I have a mentor. So I feel like I'm always learning as one of my top strengths finders. I learn just as much from the mentees as I do my mentor. So, I agree.
Wide gap there,
Mm-hmm.
or there's so much that we can learn.
It is. Yeah, I agree. And we love learning. Okay, moving on to like industry insights. What are you seeing in the banking world with industry trends? Are you seeing anything special right now?
I speak for a lot of bankers where it's really difficult to get deals done right now. I mean, I know the interest rate environment, we don't know where it is, right? The Fed has announced it probably will not lower interest rates at all for the remainder of the year. But we're also seeing that this trend right here where interest rates are at, this is normal. Like, this is where interest rates should be in order to normalize the economy, right? So as a banker, it's, you need to purchase this property now because the interest rates aren't going down.
Yes.
You don't know if the bank today is going to take this equity injection or raise it because their balance sheet's getting full and they may not take your deal today like they would yesterday, right? So those are a lot of the conversations that we're having. And in Fort Worth, it's growing so fast. And you hear that the city is having a hard time getting permits passed through and the water infrastructure and the electricity infrastructure. I have a client who needs to get out of his building because he needs to, just like y'all said, he needs to add on to his building, but the electricity infrastructure is not in place. So he would have to bring in that but in that area, it's tapped out.
Oh.
And with more warehouse space, he needs more equipment, right? So that's where the energy things come in. So with more equipment, it's more energy, it's more electricity, and that area can't house it. So he has to find another building. But he's like, that is a lot of money for growth. Like, I don't know if, I have the capital backing for it. So these are the conversations majority that I'm having.
Interesting.
So these businesses are growing, they're maximizing on the DFW market and its growth. And they're like, but where do I go?
Mm-hmm.
How can I afford it and grow at the same time? And that's where I come in to help them understand equity injection, cash flow, where you can make it work or where you may have to cut back.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it is around, well, if you're going to grow, your cash flow is not going to look the same.
Right.
A lot of these companies who made it through COVID,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're not even talking about COVID and underwriting anymore
Mm-hmm.
because you've made it, we're done,
Oh, that's
right?
interesting.
So the companies who made it through COVID but maximized on COVID and now their numbers are down because we're not seeing those trends anymore. They're the ones that are struggling. But in the general contracting world, so my wheelhouse is manufacturing, wholesale, and distribution.
Okay.
I should have started with that. So that's why I'm having those conversations, because a lot of my clients have the market share in their specific industries and are needing to grow, or they're acquiring businesses around the state or around the Southwest
Mm-hmm.
and understanding, like, do I take on that real estate or do I sell it or do I just have that company lease it from me? What does that cash flow look like? So there are a lot of interesting things that we have conversations with around commercial real estate. And then the other thing is these jobs are just so far behind. Right. So if one needs work, it's like, well, can we get it done in 90 days? It's like, I was told 90 days. Now it's 180 days. Now 9 months until I can even get
in the building or
in
it's
build.
yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because I can remember buying my first house back in, oh gosh, it was like 20 years ago. It was a long time ago. And it was when the crazy interest rates and it was like 3%,
Yes.
And I remember my dad saying, well, I remember back in the 80s when it was 27% interest or something. And then like what you just said, we're kind of back to normal times, but that isn't our normal. Like our normal is like, here, let's just give you everything for free. So it's interesting hearing your perspective on all that and what does it look like, because interest rates do affect our choices and our decisions and everything.
You're not, you see a lot of multifamily. I don't do a whole lot of multifamily storage units, things like that, where we're looking at Fort Worth. They're doing a lot of city grants and city tax agreements to the companies that are coming in, right? And so at that point, the bank can't really help as far as financing goes on those because they have a new market tax to it. So I've lost a couple of deals to those, and it just
Interesting.
means you're bringing in new employment to the city, right, in the suburbs of Fort Worth. And so those are interesting to see. It's awesome because those companies get support and they don't have to take on that type of debt on the balance sheet. But it's hard to get deals done. And I've lost out on a couple of those.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I feel like everything's booming right now.
It is. It really is.
So, there is the interest rate, it's the cost of doing business kind of,
Yeah.
you have to.
And it's not take a hit because it shouldn't have been there to begin with, right? And that's kind of what all of the economists are saying. Like, that cash flow shouldn't have been there to begin with. This is the normal rate environment. The quicker you adjust to it, the quicker you could grow. It's kind of like the lumber surcharge. Was it right at COVID, like in 2022?
Yes.
It's evened out now, but those companies who didn't maximize that, general contracts and things like that, they didn't survive.
Right.
It was just different materialistic things like that too that you see in my industry.
That's interesting. Let's see. What are you passionate about in your job, and what are some of your future goals?
Like I said at the very beginning, I am so fascinated by the growth of this area. I don't know what I would do if I were in any other city or state or anything.
We
You know
would
what
move
I
to
mean?
Texas. That's what we would do.
Yeah.
We would move here.
And it's so fascinating because everyone I meet with that I take on, they're all in growth mode, right? They all want bigger things. And it's not that they want better things for their employees. I really take on, most of my clients are either founders or still the original owners or they're generational owners. And they really take into consideration these choices can affect employees. Like, I don't want to lay anybody off. I don't want to have to cut, SG&A. I don't want to have to do any of that. And the fact that they're having those conversations with me means that they care about their employees, they care about their community. And I am so passionate about that. I think that is so fascinating. And in my line of work, a lot of my clients are, like I said, they're market share and they're very niche in what they do. And it's just so fascinating how you would think I don't know how I can say this, because I don't have NDAs or anything like that. Either a pet pharmacy company
Oh,
who distributes
uh-huh.
veterinary and pharmacy information all across the globe,
Yeah.
or metal manufacturers that deal with just explosives. And it's an environmental way that you can use explosives in construction.
And you're like, who knew this was a company?
Who knew this was a company? And
Yeah.
I'm out making them or prospecting them and knowing that they support this community and they have this market and they're volunteering, they have passions, they have aspirations, and it's just so fun and so rewarding, and it gives you purpose, right? You want to do something, a job that you love, and I think you can take it a step further. It's like, what's your purpose though? You're not just doing it for money, you're doing it to support yourself, but if you don't love it and if it doesn't give you purpose, then why do you do it? And I feel like out of my entire banking career, that has never left. That has never left on what I wanted to do. As far as career goes, I've always wanted to get specifically in commercial real estate. I think I'll get there one day.
Okay.
Managing your 300 million projects, 400 million projects,
Okay.
like syndicated,
Okay.
like Medal of Honor Museum is a good example of the
Okay.
banks that syndicated that. I would love to be a banker that would put together those deals.
Interesting.
So that's where my career is. That's where I've always wanted to go. So in the background, that's what I study a lot, is how to do that, what those deals would look like, how would you structure them? Yeah, how would you underwrite them? What does that look like? In Dallas, I worked with past President Sarah Terry. I spoke with her on a deal that they're doing, because in Dallas right now, you're seeing a lot of repurposing, right? They just announced the Bank of America Tower will be residential. Like, how would you do that? What does that even look like?
We've been on a lot of those adaptive reuse projects.
Isn't that fascinating?
With Sarah, that's one of our projects.
Yeah. Isn't that fascinating? And she said plumbing.
Plumbing is the biggest issue. Isn't that interesting?
I was so fascinated.
Yeah.
That it's plumbing.
It's plumbing.
Because they only have 1 or 2 bathrooms on each floor.
Yep.
So they haven't figured out yet how to fix that.
Yep.
And what that looks like. And I'm like, well, what does that loan look like? She's like, that's the thing. We don't know.
Oh,
We don't
interesting.
know what those costs are. Yeah. So how do you put that in a budget? Like, you just airball it, right? You just put an airball in there just to see if those costs add up to what you're thinking. It's like Dallas is really doing something that not a lot of other markets are doing. So it's pretty fascinating.
It's interesting. We have a project with them and we got like 4 floors. And then they added like 4 more floors, and then they added a few more floors to it. And so, and I want to say, don't quote me on this, but I want to say that it's like a few floors of multifamily, and then a couple floors of office, and then and so I'm like, wonder what the elevator situation looks like. Is there a guy in his pajamas with his dog and a guy with his suit, or are there? I don't think are there separate elevators? I don't know. Are there separate elevators?
There has to be. Bowling floor.
Yes. Oh, I forgot about that.
I think that's such a cool place to be at in the industry. So eventually that's what I would want to do. People ask if I want to get in leadership again. Maybe if it arises. Like, my whole first half of my career was management and leadership, and I would miss the client touch with that. Not that I couldn't do it.
Right.
But like, I have 4 kids, I have a husband. I want to be able to do things that if I had to babysit a lot of people, you kind of lose that drive. And some people, that's what they're meant to do. That's their purpose.
Right.
And I love that. And for me, I do manage people, just projects.
Right.
In a different way.
Well, all of that's so interesting, because I don't deal with the banking stuff on a daily basis. So all of this has been like good. It's been like a good mastermind class for me for the last 30 minutes. Okay, so kind of getting to know you a little bit more. What are some of your hobbies outside of work?
Reading. hanging out with kiddos, traveling. My husband and I were always like, what can we do next? Where can we go next? Just different experiences for the kids. And it's so funny. People are like, well, what are you reading? I'm like, please don't ask me that because it's not self-help books.
We're not
It's
reading
not,
educational programming.
it's not banking of the future. It's not anything like that. And
It's a way to turn the brain off and relax.
it is.
Mhm.
And I read very fast. So for me, I just kind of ingest all of these stories and just kind of take them with me sometimes. And like you said, it's a respite and I find a couple of hours a day to do it,
Mhm.
work out. To your point, I think whatever your hobby is, it should focus on you. You need to self-reflect a lot and you need to take time for you, whatever that looks like. What do they call it now? Self-care.
Yep.
That is very important. I feel like most people, if your hobby is whatever it is, it needs to be self-care
I
because
agree.
it focuses on you.
Well, we only have so much time in a day. So
Yeah.
we need to pick things that we're enjoying and loving. And it is self-care. It's not nothing, just another thing you have to check off the list.
Yeah, it gives you energy. It doesn't drain energy from you. It gets you to the next day.
So when you're on your current vacation, are you planning your next vacation? Or
Yes.
how does your vacation planning work?
I try to kind of settle down. It's like, oh, I love this, but I am what they call an ambivert. So
Okay.
meaning
You're kind of in the middle.
I'm kind of in the middle. It's the best way I can explain it is people take energy from you, or extrovert people give you energy.
Yes.
And so for me, I always want to be like where I can have some peace, beach in the mountains. I don't have a huge itinerary. I'm just kind of doing whatever comes and we're not really stressed out, right? You need to be here, you need to be here. And so when I get somewhere and I love it, I'm like, okay, let's just do this. Let's just do this a couple of more times because it's familiar.
Okay.
You kind of already know.
Okay.
My husband and I are both like that, but at some point I'm like, we should probably like see more.
Try a new spot.
We just got back from Roatan, Honduras. And it's so magical. Not a lot of people know about it because I've been telling everybody about it. I'm like, Roatan, what is that? I'm like, I honestly can't explain it except for just go and it's magical and it's like a little lagoon space. The island is tiny. When you land, it's like you're landing on water. You don't know where the runway is. But I wasn't planning my next vacation. I was literally in the moment, reading a book, watching the water. Nice. Yeah, with a group of friends, and it was just so much fun.
Yeah, we leave for vacation on Friday, so I'm super excited about that. So yeah, let's see, who or what inspires you the most?
I mean, I have the most, the most. This is really corny. My husband.
Nice.
My husband. He is an entrepreneur. He's so successful, and you would have never like I've known him for, been together 16 years. And just the drive that he has is so inspiring. It really is, because I feel like I don't have that mindset. And for him to show up one day during COVID, building a house, having our fourth kid, and saying, I want to start my own business. And for me, always being in corporate America, going, I don't know. I don't know. But it was so inspiring for him to say, no matter what, like we will be okay. No matter what. This is okay. We can take this jump if we fail, that's fine. If we're successful, it's fine. And that to me, that's very inspiring for somebody to just say, let's do it.
Let's take the risk.
To the winds, like wherever, like onward. And just to have that mindset where at the end of the day, it is going to be okay. Not, it might be okay. It will be okay. And for him to start as a baseball coach, now owning his own business, he just paid off his investor and he's only been in business for almost 4 years.
Nice.
Employees who love him, crews who love him, that work for him because of him, not because of how good he is or what he does.
Right.
And I think that is very inspiring. I aspire to be like that,
Oh, that's
to
nice.
be and to make those choices and to have those people around me. And my kids see that too. Like when we go places, I feel like he knows everybody where we go. But just that person that people go to for advice, like he get calls all the time and it's not job related. It's, hey, I have this issue, I have this problem. Like, what would you do in this scenario?
Nice.
And that's very inspiring.
Mhm.
And my kiddos, they're also very inspiring. They're so
Nice.
sweet. And
How
they teach me,
old is everyone?
gosh, 12, 9, 4, and 3.
Okay. That's a big
It's a big gap. It's a big
Yeah.
gap. So people say, like, how do you do it? I was like, I wouldn't be able to do it without my big kiddos. Because they help watch the little kiddos. We had to watch our children. We had to watch the little ones last weekend. And I was like, how do people do this without help? Because 2 is a lot.
Mhm.
That close in age and toddlers.
And the ocean.
And I'm like, how do people do it without help?
Right.
So yeah, I can't take all the credit because we do put a lot on the older two, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay, so I have quick fire round questions. Do you remember these? What is the last book you read?
Is it All of the Colors?
Okay, you just said it.
I know. Oh my God. All of the Colors of the Dark.
Okay, I'm gonna write it. What is a skill you would like to learn?
This is really weird. Drawing.
Okay.
I've always wanted to draw. My daughters and art, maybe not even like things like maybe to paint or be creative. I've always wanted to learn that. In the back of my mind, I've always wanted to create
So I
something.
signed up for a class.
Did you really?
And so it's just online, like
Yeah.
from like a lady I found on Instagram. And so in January I did a 30-day challenge where every day I would do 30 minutes of artwork. And I don't know anything about anything, but I have the watercolors and the pens and the pencils and all the things. And so it's just been fun.
So same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have no clue what I'm doing, but I have the paper and the materials, and so I just signed up to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wanted to.
You should do it.
I think I'm going to.
Yeah.
There you go.
What is the favorite city you have visited?
And this is going to sound really weird. I loved Mumbai, India. I went
Oh.
there for my MBA at TCU. We used to have to study abroad for 2 weeks. And I think I loved it the most because it was such a culture shock to me to be there. There's 22 million people in the size of downtown Fort Worth.
That's crazy. It's on my list of places I want to go to as well.
The culture there makes you feel so small because, us as a country, we're very, much in our infancy when it comes to culture. We went and saw the Elephanta caves that were built in the 1500s.
Oh, wow.
The Portuguese were in India trying to take over India. And understanding like their religion and how they still speak to it and they still study it like thousands of years old. And as a people, as a culture, they want to stay the same. Like you do see poverty, you do see a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, when they sit at a table, it's everybody equal.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
it's everybody at the table. And for me to see that and see the respect that they have for one another was so fascinating for me. The city itself, it was very overwhelming, and
I'm
there
sure.
was a lot to take in. But I think there's a reason that a lot of US companies do have some sort of headquarters in that city. So the big production company that did all the CGI for Game of Thrones is in Mumbai.
Interesting.
Yes, that's where it came from. And all like JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, all of the bigger banks, they have huge facilities in Mumbai, India. I think it's because of the people and the culture. And I think that in the biggest supply chain that's gone thousands of years is in Mumbai.
Oh.
So it's a delivery food service that's thousands of years old.
Okay.
And they deliver hot meals to every worker in the city.
Wow.
And it's thousands of years old.
Wow.
So you would
And
order.
we just got Uber Eats last year.
It has nothing, and it
Yeah.
is nothing to do with this. And we went and studied it, and we got to like see it.
Interesting.
And it is fascinating, but it's thousands of years old.
It's unbelievable.
Because it's just taking hot food because they believe in hot food, hot meals, homemade.
Interesting.
And all of the things. So a long answer to a short question. That is such a fascinating city. It was really cool to be there.
Neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that India is definitely on my list of places that I want to go to. And the flight is just so long. So that's like what's been holding us back on that. So gosh, that's a long flight.
It is.
Let's see. What is a piece of advice to someone just starting out in the industry?
Know your worth
Mm.
and don't be afraid to tell your story.
I love that. So that kind of segues us into the next thing where I know when you did like the little intake form, we had a handful of things that we really wanted to talk about. And that was one of them was know your worth. So do you want to speak on that a little bit more?
So being president of Crew Fort Worth, so this is my fourth year on the board, and understanding like the challenges that women have in this industry, not really in this industry, but nobody ever asks you what you want. Nobody ever asks you what your aspirations are. They should, but they typically don't. So, learning to raise your hand, here's my skill set, here's what I want, here's what I want to learn, here's what I'm good at, here's where I want to work on. How do you tell that to someone and have the confidence? How do you sit down and ask yourself what your skill set is, what you really want to work on? Really look inside yourself and answer the questions that you asked me earlier. A lot of times it's going to change, but give yourself the confidence to go out and tell your story and to be able to say that. And I don't think a lot of women do. And really in Crew and my committees and my board, that's one of the things we always talk about is how can we be better tomorrow? Where are we at today and how can we be better? But how do we voice that for ourselves too and for other people? And that goes back to networking too, where I sit in front of you. How can I help you? How can you help me? If I don't ask, I don't know. If you don't ask, you don't know. And unfortunately, that is a skill that a lot of people don't have. And sometimes I take it for granted because I do have that because somebody taught me. And I feel like a lot of women should know that. Know your worth, know where you want to be, and be able to tell that story.
I love that. That's really good. And we need to have people like you saying that so that other people can hear that to say, "Oh, okay, other people are doing this and it's okay to do this," you know? Mhm. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. You've mentioned women networking with one another. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
I love, and I had a conversation with a colleague yesterday who went to her first, or not first, but Crew Fort Worth luncheon, and she was trying to invite other people to come. And she said, Cassie, it's hard to sell because people just think it's another luncheon, but they don't understand like the atmosphere when you walk into the room, how inviting it is, how warm it is, how welcome you feel, because that environment is, I feel like it's so special. It's so sacred because when you walk into that room, when you network with women, I feel like there should be kind of a sacred foundation to it. Like we are empowering each other because empower women, empowered women, right? Understanding that I want to do business with women. I want to see projects where there are more women. I want to see boards and executive teams where there are more women because of how powerful those connections are. And I feel like that empathy, that sympathy sits there too, but also a sense of work ethic. And we have a lot going on. We want to get it done and we want to do it right. We don't want to sit in an office for 13 hours or 12 hours because that's not productive. When you walk into a room of women, I feel like that mindset is so clear that it's refreshing. And I think networking with women, I think helps me with that confidence too, to say, hey, I can do this and I can do it with pride and I can do it with success.
And it also brings about, for whatever reason, like a safe space.
Yes,
You know?
that's a great way to put it too.
And so I feel like there's a lot of younger women that are more okay with going to those events where there's still 100 ladies there, but they feel more safe going in and maybe learning their elevator pitch for the very first time and practicing it out loud, you know? So it's interesting. Gosh, it's probably been 6 months ago. Somebody pulled me aside and they said, "Hey, are you still doing those like little women's things?" And I thought, oh my gosh, like what is little women's things? And I realized then like A, he didn't mean it like the way it came out, but then B, he doesn't know what I'm doing. And so I talked to Rachel Kennedy and she does like social media coaching and things like that. And she said, Andrea, I think you need to put together some long form LinkedIn posts about your women's groups. And so instead of just posting a picture, Ladies Networking Day, I actually put content behind it about, and I sent an email out to a lot of ladies like, what have you gotten out of this group? And literally it was tens of millions of dollars worth of work. It was introductions. It maybe was an introduction to you, but then you gave me an introduction to somebody else, and then we're on a project with them together. And there was a business acquisition done from some of these networking groups. And so I say all of that because once I started posting these long form posts on LinkedIn, people started reading it and really engaging in it. I mean, thousands of impressions on LinkedIn. And I was at an event here a while back and people pulling me, Andrea, we want to like tell us more. How can our women get involved in your group? Andrea, I saw the thing. I'm so glad that you're doing that. But it took that extra step of work to actually write it out because I assumed everyone would understand that it's a networking group, but they needed to know the more meat of the goal of the
I think that's very important. You should always know your intention before you walk into any room.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting where instead of just the picture and great networking, they really wanted the story behind it.
Yeah.
What else did you have on your list here? Well, talk to me about Crew Fort Worth because you are the president this year.
Oh, I just loved every minute of it. And Crew Fort Worth is has such a special place in my heart too, because I feel like you're able to learn and grow from women that you respect, that you trust, that you can go in there and be your true self, your whole self, and get that in return. Because I think you learn a lot of things too. You can ask for help, you can ask for guidance, you can ask for advice. But to your point, they're also powerful women who do a lot of important projects in Fort Worth, who rely on each other to get those projects done. And you see that success within the community. And I think another thing with Crew Fort Worth that a lot of people probably don't know, or we haven't voiced it enough, is we do have a mission. We do have a mission that is in our bylaws, on our website. This is we empower women in commercial real estate.
Nice.
Everything that we do, everything that we discuss is, does it support our mission? I don't think any other networking group you can say that about. That says we have a mission, and if there's no intent behind our mission, we're not going to do it.
Right.
Because here's what we're here to do. Here's what we're here to support. And I think we need to voice that more. It's because you're here for a purpose, you're here for intention, and we will help you get there. Whether it is getting projects, right? We do want to get deals done within the community.
Right.
But there's also a know your worth course. There's also a how do you use AI in your company? How do you have a crucial conversation with your boss? Or how do you ask for that promotion? How do you ask for that salary increase? We do a lot of those things too within the Crew Network, within Crew Fort Worth. So it's a lot of things that you're learning inside information, but also it does tailor to women. It does tailor to how we operate, how our brains work, how we function. And it's able to kind of meet you there and mirror how to apply that tomorrow, right? It's always the application piece of it. If you take the information in and you don't apply it, then it's not useful.
Right.
And I feel like that's a lot of what Crew Fort Worth does. We're very intentional in saying, here's the foundation of what we're teaching you, but we're also going to show you how to apply it, whether it's by leadership, whether it's by empowering, inviting people to just maybe intimate events or luncheons to say, here's what you're trying to do. Here's how we can show you how to do it and be successful. But also to your point, here's a safe place to do it.
Right. Love it.
I love it.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about?
I think we covered it. I think that was a lot of information. I love what I do. I love empowering women. I love working with women. And I feel like if you're listening to this and you hear this and you're like, I want to do that, like go find Crew Fort Worth or go find a crew in your area and you'll be met where you are and welcomed.
Where can we find you on any social media channels or organizations or anything like that?
So Crew Fort Worth, I think it's they changed the thing. It's like crewfortworth.org. I'm on social media and I'm on Instagram. So I'm private, but if you can go and add me because you're talking about my family. It does a lot of my family and my travels. And I joke like follow me for more parenting advice. It's the good, bad, and ugly. I'm very transparent because I think it's funny. You should share like when things happen. I have a 4-year-old who's feral and we have a video camera in our living room, and a lot of people are like, we just wait for those videos that you catch with her, or like my 4-year-old like sliding into home base, but it's a Christmas tree instead, and he knocked over the Christmas tree. And I feel like that's really the only platform that I have, is just to kind of show what life truly, really is, and how phenomenal it is. One more thing, I did start our neighborhood book club.
Oh,
My
nice.
husband calls it wine club. But we do share books, and I think maybe my last piece of advice was go find your tribe, go find your people
Nice.
that again you can share information with, whether it is commercial real estate or just women who are like, oh, I read too. I want to read this book with you and,
Yeah.
and talk about it and kind of meet you in the middle, talk about parenting or talk about whatever life things you're doing at the moment. Because it is hard to find true industry working women who also have kids,
Mhm.
have all of things, have all of these hobbies, have all of these other things that they do. And it's nice to finally meet someone to say, hey, I do this too. Let's just talk about it.
Nice.
Let's laugh about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I feel like we have covered
Thank you.
just 100
Yes.
different things here in the last hour.
So
So, we will put all of that information in the show notes on
Okay.
where we can find you. So we'll put your LinkedIn on there also. So that is it for our first episode of Hard Hats and Horizons.